Greetings, I'm Chris Madsen and welcome to the Grand Awakening. Awakening means to become aware, conscious, and expanded knowledge on something. You could say it's similar to a child in kindergarten versus when they leave school. There's been many awakenings. A lot of ahas and things. They're a different being through the process. Or you can think of it as a person that is sleeping and then they wake up to a whole different dimension or realm. The Grand Awakening is very similar to that. That's why it's called the Grand Awakening. And the awakening is dealing on several different levels. The two main ones, if you had to categorize them, would be on a cultural level, on a world level, external things, banking, politics, government, technology, etc. And then the other one is spiritual. There's a spiritual awakening. And they both actually go hand in hand. On the cultural level, the awakening, a lot of it has to do with technology now. We're no longer in a kind of medieval energy of having just a little bit of data, because we have so much information that we can draw different sources from. It's far more difficult for groups and politics and governments and corporations to conspire, because we are becoming more and more aware of what's really going on. Kind of like the Wizard of Oz, we're seeing who's really pulling all those strings. You know, we're seeing, it's like we're pulling the curtain down. And in the process of doing that, more and more we're awakening to things like the mainstream media is really owned by a certain elite group that has a certain fabricated view of the world that they want us to believe in, and that it's the same groups that own basically the governments and the corporations, and they've got their way of doing things, things like the banking system. As most people know now, the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Expense or Federal Express. It's simply a group of people that print money, and that's a whole other thing that we're becoming more and more aware of, is that the scam of the banking systems, that like when you go for a loan or whatever, they're just putting digits on a screen. They're not really pulling that. They don't have like a cache of gold somewhere that they use, you know, to offset that. And so people are becoming more culturally aware, and that's creating an awakening of its own. We're getting collectively past the "they wouldn't do that" phase, and no, that's just a conspiracy theory, into the wow, not only would they do that, they are doing it, and even right now they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes, and this is how they're doing it. So on a cultural level, through technology mainly, we are becoming more aware, which aware and awakening, they can be used interchangeably most of the time. And then on a spiritual level, it's we're mainly moving collectively into a grand awakening of knowing that God, whatever term you want to use for that which is the prime first cause, is not limited to what we have been taught via religion. And via religion, it's mainly that there is a God, an external, mainly a male figure that's outside, that arbitrarily, if you pray, may or may not grant your wish, and you have to accept it, and you're a victim in these circumstances of God's will, and that, in these different ways, and that your religion, your particular belief, if you're a Christian, it's, Christ is the only way, and blah, blah, blah. We're moving from that type of a thing to a more expanded understanding of what the God state, Godhood, whatever you want to call it, what the I am presence is. And that it's not an external thing that's out there in space somewhere. It's actually all that is. We are within the mind of this. All that is within the I am that is. And that the religions, if you really study the founders of them, whether it's a Buddha or Christ or Krishna or Mohammed, etc., they all really preached the same thing. Their message was, there is one essence, one creator, one universal mind, and that we are all one body of mankind, regardless of color or beliefs or where you were born on the planet. There is one, and that love is always the solution. Move in love. That is the basis of religion. So that the awakening that's occurring, it's not in a contradiction with any religion. It's an expansion of it. It's an awakening to the real message of the founders of these religions. Now, another aspect of the Grand Awakening is recognizing that the world we've experienced has been a fabricated, conspired reality. And what I mean by that is that, say, when the earth was formed and man put on it, there were no borders written upon the earth. Like if you're in space and look down, you don't see a Canadian-U.S. border where this country ends and this one starts. There is one globe. That has been fabricated upon the system. There's so many things. Education and the banking systems, right down to suppressed technologies, which there are many of them. And so this is a fabricated reality that we've been experiencing, and the Grand Awakening is about awakening to that understanding and then moving into the solutions and a greater awareness. And so the Grand Awakening is both spiritual and cultural. And as an end result of the Grand Awakening, we can have now on the earth a whole new earth. An earth where everyone is thriving and prospering, and that we have things like free energy off the grid, that everyone is empowered, that we don't have to spend our days trying to pay a mortgage or rent, because we already have our free, beautiful place that we live in and whatnot. And spiritually, that we're no longer under the illusion that we're here on this earth for a while, or whatever we can get for pleasure from external sources, is where it's at, and then you die. we recognize it, and through the uh, evolving, if you want to call it that, or emerging, the unfolding, through the awakening, that we, in truth, are infinite, eternal beings ourselves that are having this human experience. So, welcome to the Grand Awakening. Now, let's start by, in the next part here, looking at the duality up on the earth right now, and that has been, that has taken us here. You could say darkness versus light. Think of light. Light has a source. It could be the sun, it could be a flashlight, whatever, fire, but there's a source to the light. Now, darkness, on the other hand, we all know what darkness is. You know, you walk in a dark room, it's dark. You have to fumble around. You can't see or anything. But yet, the darkness does not have a source. It's actually an absence of light. And in some ways that plays a really important part here. Because on the earth we're dealing with dualism. And dualism in this sense means light, not versus darkness, but in a relationship or comparison with darkness. Like you could be in the middle of the most pitch black room and light a little candle, and now there's light. Or else you could have, you know, like 50, 100 watt light bulbs in there, and then there's even more light. But it's all aspects of light, you know, so there's a relationship between absolute darkness and absolute light. Now, on a consciousness level, we could really break things down in the same sense of love, absolute love. Now, many people say the opposite of love is fear. You would think it would be hate, or at least I did, but when you think about it, hate is really a feeling of being threatened by something. When you hate something, it's because you're threatened by it, in fear of it. So, now another name could be evil. You know, our classic concept of what evil is could be on this dark side versus love on this side. And this is going to play a really important role as we move in the Grand Awakening, this being conscious of dualism, both in our own lives and as we see things transpiring around the world. Because once an aspect of awakening is to recognize this dualism, you know, this group or these people are moving in this side of the spectrum rather than this side. So let's start with light versus darkness in these areas. A person or group that is moving in light is completely transparent. They're totally fine. Look at their bank accounts. Look at all that they're doing, their agendas, their board meeting records, whatever. Or else, as an individual, they're completely transparent in their feelings. Whereas a group or a person that is working on the other side, more on the darker side, the evil, for lack of a better word, that person, rather than being transparent, they're very secretive. How many secrets do corporations have? Because they're not being transparent, they're being secretive. They want the monopoly. They want the power on this. governments and military and groups, corporations particularly, very secretive. And all those things are aspects of darkness, of hidden agendas. A person that is moving in the light or a group is very truthful. They're authentic. When they speak, it's the truth as far as they know it. As far as they can be clear, and the further you press them, the more they clarify what they really know. Whereas the consciousness that's moving in darkness, they tend to lie. It's when you ask them a question or you want answers, the answer isn't the truth, it's what aligns with their agendas, the fairy tale story that they want you to believe for their agendas. A person or group that is moving in the light or love, they're very into oneness. They recognize the whole, and they want to bless the whole. So it could be, say an organic gardener. He wants everybody to have the best food, and he'll share his heirloom seeds with whoever and everything. They want the highest good. Now, the opposite of that, the dark, the evil, that is very divisive. They're into division, mine versus yours. And they're very territorial. This is my monopoly. In a government, it could be this is, or a bank or whatever. This is mine. Another way to look at it would be a person or group that is in love and light. They are very sharing. They're very open and giving. Their whole thing is about how can we bless. Whereas on the darker side, it's possessive. How can I take? How can I get? We want more. Aspect of light or love is mercy. If they see a beggar, a homeless person, for instance, or as a larger group, they see a group of people that is not faring well, they're merciful. It's not this big judgment thing. It's how can we bless them? How can we rise their whole existence up? How can we touch their lives? Whereas on the dark side and more evil, they're merciless. It's let's go slaughter them. And as a matter of fact, to the point where they will slaughter innocent groups of people or whatever for their own agendas. Time and time again, we see this in history where groups of people, particularly ethnic groups, are slaughtered just because they're in the way of this dark, evil force. Person or group of love and light, they want to sustain. They want to sustain the purity of the oceans and the air, and they cherish things. They cherish, very simple things like an apricot tree. Whereas on an evil dark side, they're about destruction. They would destroy a whole mountainside and valley and everything if it serves their agenda. They'll do whatever. Person of love and light, wants paradise on earth. They want the heaven that we can have here. Whereas the evil dark side it's about domination, at all costs. They would rather have a poison polluted world with a bunch of slaves serving them and causing great harm and suffering around the planet. They would, with them dominating, they would far prefer that than to have a beautiful paradise where everyone's just in a beautiful flow. And love and light is very gentle, whereas this evil dark side is violent, very violent. And so now we all can think of in our own lives experiences of each one of these polarities, these dualities. So in this first part here, it's really recognizing dualism, that there is dark, which could be called the evil, whatever you want to call it, versus love and light. There is a dualism. There is darkness in the world, and there is light. Now, it's semantics at this moment whether, that darkness does not have a source, and thus it doesn't exist. It's merely an absence of. The reality here is that we experience both. And so at this moment, duality has been a key role. So a person that is awakened, now you could look at them and just not even know if that, to what degree a person is awakened or not, but hang around with them for any length of time, and there's definitely huge differences known between an awakened person and an unawakened person. Now, in the very same sense that there is absolute darkness and pure light, there are many, many shades of gray in between. And it's the same sense in the awakening process. I strongly think that it's infinite. It's a forever thing because we're dealing with infinite potentials of ever expanding. So, once we're out of these body temples, we're still going to be growing and learning and on and on and on. But there are definite benchmark points in awakening. And one big one is the connection with Source. An unawakened person very well may have belief systems, or even be quite religious. But that's far different than what I'm talking about. Connected with Source means that just as much as you are consciousness, you recognize that you are in infinite awareness. It's not something outside of you. It's all there really is. And in that connection, there comes a detachment from the world that was prior to the awakening. The ego plays very little role in things. Needing to have lots of possessions and things like that. The life of an awakened person becomes generally quite simple, as they don't require all of these external possessions. There's a strong sense of oneness of all that is and with all, to the point of recognizing that whatever they give, they're really giving to themselves. And what they receive, they're receiving from themselves. There's a oneness within, yeah, like the body of mankind can be likened to all of these different cells that are within the body. There's a real recognition of that within an awakened person. There's an acute awareness of the energy fields and emotional state of others. So when they're talking with others or whatever, it's almost like there's a radar that wasn't there prior to awakening that really senses the energy field of that person, their emotional state, and things like that. They recognize that the moment, each moment, the present moment is really where it's at. It's, they'll make plans for tomorrow, they'll do their grocery shopping, etc. But whatever they're doing, there's a focus on knowing that all eternity is a series of present moments, and that all the joy and the truth and all of the bliss, everything that is required or that one could want, it's not from external coming in, it's from being present in the moment and allowing. And that's where a lot of the detachment comes from, because there is a recognition that it's not from external things, it's the being. It's simply being it in the moment and allowing that connection with source, with that love and that light to infiltrate every aspect of the being. And you hunger for that. You want more and more of just being in the present moment. And there's a strong desire to emerge deeper and deeper into this, because it's so beautiful, and you know that this is the reason why not only you're here, but everything is here, is to be conscious and present in the moment and being like a fountain of love in every moment. There's an awareness of like we were talking about earlier, the suppression and the evil, the darkness that is on the world. There's not a denying of it and just looking with rose-colored glasses saying it doesn't exist. It's being very acutely aware of that it does exist and making sure that you're on top of what's going on in those arenas so that you can be the solution and live in the solutions to these things. I'll just give one example, would be GMO foods. As you're aware of the agendas of why GMO foods are here and their lies around them, and then okay, you know what, I'm not going to eat GMO foods or support that whatsoever, but I'm going to inform others as well. So that's an aspect of an awakened person is recognizing what the Illuminati and Bilderberg groups and all of these different agendas are about. That's an aspect of an awakened person, but not staying in that resonant field of trying to fight back in that sense. It's knowing the solution to it and living in it. Recognizing that there is a global village and that we're one in it. That's, again, an aspect of an awakened person. So an awakened person, if somebody says they're Dutch, for instance, or whatever, They know that's where the body temple was born in, and their parents were born in, etc. But it really has nothing to do with the essence, the person himself. We are all one. We are all cells of the one body of man. And an awakened person loves nature and and gets into nature as much as possible. And yes, is perhaps prone to hugging trees at times, as I myself am. They also meditate frequently, and there's so many different ways to meditate. There's not a right or a wrong way, but Source itself shows the awakened person where their meditation should be taking them at any given time. But in their meditations, they're always moving and emerging deeper and deeper into consciousness and love and light. And to the point where an awakened person, that the essence flowing from them is love. And it's that agape love, that unconditional love. And it's such a beautiful thing. They honor their body temple. As a awakened being, there is a recognition that you are energetically attached to your body temple for your journey on the planet. And you need to be in as high a resonance as possible, vibrant health. It really plays an integral role in to what degree your spirit is resonating, your energy level is flowing. So honoring the body temple with exercise, yoga, nature hikes, organic food, things of that nature are part of being an awakened person. And another important thing is wealth, because we're in the world and so much depends, on exchanges of money. In the world, so often wealth is based on how much you possess, whereas for an awakened being, it's not how much do I possess, but to what degree am I able to give? How much can I give? And so when they're receiving, their first thoughts after, food, shelter, clothing is, wow, where am I going to flow this to? And there's not a hoarding of money, knowing that the flow, it's an energy flow, and you want to keep it flowing rather than stagnant somewhere. So, money soon flows in and out. And there's a strong sense of being led by Source. It's so being, knowing that you're in the mind of love itself, that wants your highest good, and that it is leading the way. So it completely releases you from any anxieties or things that an unawakened person that is separate, having an illusion of being separate from Source would have. So it's kind of like just knowing this, everything is perfect, whole, and complete, exactly as it is. There's a release of past beliefs and things of that nature. It's almost like how Christ said a person's born again. They die, and they're born again. It's very similar. It is that, actually. It's a rebirth. And so the past, it's like, that's not who they are anymore. You completely change. It's like a seed being planted in the ground. When it comes up as a plant, it's no more that seed. It's something brand new. And an awakened person's lifestyle comes into alignment with the visions of a new earth. So as much as possible, they're living in ways that impact the environment in beautiful ways and not harmful ways. So, for instance, if they have a garden, they won't use herbicides and pesticides on it. They'll find good organic ways to deal with things like that. They recognize that they, in any given circumstance, can be creator or victim. And it's their choice. And so in every circumstance, they become creator of the circumstance rather than a victim of it from other sources. They're attuned to the energies within their own body, the chakras, the kundalini, the chi energy, whatever you want to call it, that there is an energetic light flow, that there is a light body within the body temple. They recognize that they're using the body as a vehicle for this journey and that they are not this body. They're understanding the deeper truths in religion, in the teachings of various religions. They understand the deeper wisdom of them, which is a beautiful thing. And in that, they recognize that words like sacred, pure, holy, words like that, they almost are like butterfly wings, butterflies flowing around them when they hear beautiful words like that. They resonate so much with them. They recognize that love is the one power, and that love cannot be conquered. Yeah, love always wins in the end. It's everyone is in the process of waking up, and that love is the highest power there is. And that's the place you want to be on the winning team, be on love's team. And they hold the vision of the new earth, knowing that this is a fabricated reality. This what we're on. It's like a hologram in a way, and the things that are on this earth at this time, we can change these things and bring about paradise on earth. And so the process of awakening, it's you see here's the big thing, is that people ask, well, how do I become awakened? And the reality is, you already are awakened. That it's like you have arrived the moment you know you have arrived. It sounds, let's see, the best way to say it is that the process of awakening, and it is a process, it's remembering who you really are. It's remembering where you really came from, where you're going, and that you're in this infinite sea of consciousness and your place within it. So it's remembering who you are, and that's why we call it awakening. It's going from the sleep state, or unaware of who you really are, to the big ahas of who you really are. So now, let's create this paradise on earth that we can, and that's what we're going to talk about now. Before electricity was discovered on the planet, there was a lot of suffering because we weren't utilizing something that was there all along. So people in the winter got really cold, and a lot of times they didn't have light except for fires and candles and things. But yet electricity was always available. And the key thing here is it was always in potential form, and it wasn't until somebody finally figured it out, what to do there. And in that very same sense, we have literally all the resources right now at our disposal to have paradise on earth. It's not that we don't have the resources, it's that we're not using them right. And a lot of it has to do with, up until now, we've been on an unawakened planet. And because of that, we're seeing the effects globally of what an unawakened planet looks like. Things like borders. In an unawakened world, it's my territory versus yours. We're seeing monetary systems and means of exchange of money that always work for the benefit of the global elite, and that it's manipulated to keep us in this suppressed state. In the unawakened, in this suppressed world that we're living in, we see things like education systems that are based on programming and control. We see health, quote unquote, care systems that are not based on creating and bringing about and sustaining vibrant life. It's about pumping the body full of, chemicals and things and trying to deal with symptoms. On and on it goes in this unawakened world, to the degree that literally, without exception, we are all enslaved to one degree or another from it. And so now, as we awaken, that shifts, and to the point where we can have paradise on earth. We do it culturally and spiritually simultaneously. Now, let me explain just how beautiful this paradise on earth is. It's not some airy-fairy thing that, is in some make-believe story. This can be our daily reality. We have, as I was saying, the resources, everything for it right now. So what it requires, though, is for us to get back into our own personal power, rather than through fear and through being victims, or being sheeple is a good name for it, rather than allowing those energies in consciousness to suppress us, for us to literally say, no more, not here, not now. It's as within, so without. So as we hold and know the visions, then it occurs. It's kind of like before electricity, you could be sitting there talking to somebody around, the campfire or whatever, and saying, I'll bet there's a way that we could harness that water there, and maybe do something. And chances are the other, well, you're crazy, you know, until people actually see it in action. A lot of times they're still in an unawakened or unaware state. And so you can expect to hear a lot of, things like they wouldn't do that, they couldn't do that, or that's not possible. But I assure you it is. Here are things that are possible on the planet right now. One is to not have borders. Those are fabricated things. Two is to dismantle all military. Do you realize that just the amount of money that's used to sustain these war machines that mutilate and kill people, we could food, shelter, and clothe everyone on the planet that needs it now, just with those resources. We can have systems in place where rather than debt and borrowing and the banking system as we know it, that's just completely done away with. It's not happening anymore. And that a person, here's something right here that will free us a lot, is if where you live on the planet, where you choose that you don't pay a mortgage or taxes or rent on it, that's your space. In the very same sense like an eagle doesn't pay for its nest, or a coyote. We're smart, intelligent people. We can figure out ways to make that happen. We have to get past this whole idea that jobs and working for a living is where it's at, for security. It's not. Those are forms of slavery. As soon as you have to go to this place and do something that you don't want to do, like that's slavery. We can have a world where your highest potentials are met. And you remember here that a lot of what's going on the planet, it's this fabricated reality to keep us suppressed, to keep us as sheeple. And what I'm talking about right now is ultimate revolution. This is exactly what the global elite are completely freaked out and scared of, is you and I having this conversation and waking up. Because as soon as we do, we are the ones that are living in the thriving abundance and in the beautiful world, rather than being their sheeple. So now, here is a very important thing, is that we have been given the free technology, free energy. It's everywhere. Nuclear physicists and things, quantum physicists, have explained to us, that there's more energy in a room than you need to sustain the whole Earth's energy needs. It's everywhere, an unlimited supply. Tesla, for instance, had beautiful energy systems that would give free energy to literally everyone anywhere on the Earth. We have these technologies now. They've been suppressed so that the oil pipelines and all of these corporations and their world system that they built up can be sustained and keep us suppressed into this slavery mode. But now, if we release and allow this free energy, listen to this. Okay, so now you can have greenhouses wherever you want. You can grow your own food. You can be completely off the grid. No more smart meters and electric wires everywhere. No more hydro bills. All of these things, you're free. And we also have the technology for vehicles then that are free energy. No more expenses in those ways. There's even technology for anti-gravity. Right now it's things like vehicles above the ground are used in drone systems in the military. We have all sorts of technologies we can use. So we can make it so that our vehicles are even off the ground. We can allow the roads and such to decay back to their normal environment. And in the next 100 years or so, while they're still there, we can use them for bike lanes and hiking, make them our trails, right? Things like that. So with an off-the-grid living dynamic and not having banking systems, right there, you can, and no borders, you can live wherever you want. We can have these different types of situations. We can have kind of city bases where people that want to be in a more urban type situation, and then sprawling out into as far out into nature as you want. We can set up systems where if it's not blessing the environment, we just don't do it. We don't need it. Things like fracking and pipelines and polluting the oceans and things like that. That's just literal insanity. That's an unawakened thing. Right now, as far as health goes, we are being poisoned through GMO foods, vaccines, all these different type of things, irradiated from all these different things like the smart meters and Wi-Fi to a large degree and things. We can get past all that into a global system that we're in a perfect balance with the earth. Now, technology is an incredibly amazing thing. We can use that in a way that blesses the planet, in ways that assist us. We don't need to have it in any sort of a detrimental thing or get rid of technology. Technology is an amazing extension of our interconnectedness. Just like we're cells of the body of man, we are, in our human bodies have cells. Every human cell can connect with another and have communication. And that's what our technology helps us with. So that's a wonderful thing. So you're starting to see where I'm going with this. An awakened consciousness, global consciousness, equals an awakened planet, which equals paradise on earth. And I strongly suspect as we consciously awaken and live in a balance with the earth itself will respond with weather conditions and rain and sun and a balance of seasons and everything that works in a perfect harmony with our flows. Now, an awakened consciousness doesn't live in problems. We live in solutions, and recognizing that every situation that occurs, that two things are attached to that problem. One is an opportunity, and the other is the solution. So right now, we have lots of opportunities, and thus lots of solutions. So as far as spiritually going and the awakening, if you have an open heart, the teachers will come, the experiences will come, the practices of meditation, what you're to do, your next steps, they'll always be there. It's kind of like if you're driving at night on a dark road, your headlights will show you, your car headlights will show you the next little bit ahead. And that's all you need to know. So, and that's exactly what your spiritual journey is like as well. As you go, as you require something, it'll come. It might be a friend giving you a book or a YouTube video or a workshop, whatever, but it will come. Culturally, what we want to do is hold the vision of what the new earth looks like. And then in doing that, whatever isn't of that, we say no to. We choose not to participate in it. I'll give you an examples here is that one, in the new world, we have vibrant, healthy food. And so right now, you can start by making sure your food is organic and that you're growing your own food as much as you can if you're able to, and that you're eating living, vibrant, green foods and things that are in harmony with what the body requires. And thus, in doing that, you're not supporting GMO whatsoever. And there's the other aspect of this awakening is by saying no, we inform others. It's important to inform others. Peaceful protests, writing letters, et cetera, et cetera. Partaking in things that make sure that the new world is coming. We say yes to whatever is of love and say no to whatever isn't. Now, in our personal lives, that means things like, say, you were working on a pipeline in northern Canada or something. That's destroying the earth. And so you get out of there immediately. That sure, your rational ego mind would say, oh yeah, well, somebody else is going to come and take the job. The point is, you, as a cell of the body of man, are standing up. And as more and more do, we create the shift. So we have to make our whole lives in alignment with the new earth. And love is the ultimate power at all times. We've seen the effects of what a world looks like with people moving in unconsciousness in unawakened states. Just imagine what the world looks like in an awakened state. Wow. Imagine children born in this world that are just free. From the moment they're born, the whole global village is theirs and love. They don't have to go to a box room for school. There is no school. There is mainly outside, sharing in a community, and wherever the child's potentials are moving towards, that's where they gravitate to. It's just, you can vision yourself, these things and so much more. It's living love's vision. What does love have as a vision for the planet and moving in there? I've surrendered my life to living love's vision, to living in this holding the vision of this new world and making it that the light, love, this new dimension of life is spread as far and wide as possible. I would love for you to join in this beautiful, beautiful vision and allow your heart to be prompted. Go as far as your potentials will possibly allow you. You're in a sea of potentials, infinite potentials. You can check out the website livinglovesvision.com. There's more videos there, including this one. And I will be traveling around, speaking, doing gatherings, workshops, calling in the energy, allowing healings, and whatever else love would have us do. And so participate, create your own gathering. Invite me if you want. Who knows, it might be free. And with that, namaste. Namaste means the light within me, or this love, all that I've been talking about, this awakened state, sees that in you. Let's do this. Let's do it now. Namaste.